let's talk Digital Noise Alliance, and let's talk about, you know, some of the things that you've put out there in interviews already.
Yeah.
You know, that it doesn't sound like The Verdict, that it's its own thing. You know, I saw some quotes from Whip where he talked about, you know, Zeus saying that it sounds like Queensryche, and Whip saying that you guys are really kind of going with the gut. Obviously, uh, you know, you didn't play drums on this record, and yeah, so there's a lot to talk about with this album. So,
Yeah.
well,
So Casey Grillo, who's been playing with us for over 5 years on all the live shows, he was actually in a couple of the videos um, for The Verdict. So he played 100% of all the drums on this new record, which is awesome. I mean, he played so well, and um, this record was different because instead of everyone working on songs at their own house and then everybody compiling all these demos together, we started doing writing sessions at my place. And so we did several of those where Zeus says, all right, I don't want any old hard drive ideas. I don't want any rehashed stuff that didn't make this record or didn't make that record. I don't want to rework any of that. I want all brand new, fresh ideas in the room together. Get on the, Casey, go play a drum beat, or Michael, like, come up with a riff, and like, let's just do this like old school, like the way bands used to do it. And so that's how we approached this record. Every single song. There were two songs that Eddie wrote that didn't happen that way because he was very reluctant or apprehensive to travel with COVID and all that. So
sure.
he came down later, but he brought in two songs that he wrote, and then Mike Stone kind of went in and, as we call it, Reichified. He Reichified all the guitar parts with those interesting chords, and making it sound more Queensryche. Um, and so yeah, so this, and then we did a bonus track, which was the cover of Billy Idol's song Rebel Yell,
Rad.
which is killer. I love it. And yeah, and so we put out two videos so far. The first one was called In Extremis, which is the album opener, which is, kind of a straightforward rocker. um I wouldn't say it's reinventing the wheel by any means, but it's just a good, fun, you know, rocker of a song. It's got kind of a cool little breakdown middle section. Um, I get a lot of comparisons to Bruce Dickinson on this song vocally. And then the second one that we put out is the ballad called Forest, and we did a video for that I really love, and it really touches on something we're all going to deal with or have, which is the loss of, particularly in this case, it was a parent. You're losing a parent. But that, we discussed, oh, should we put out a couple rockers and then do the ballad? And then we're just kind of like, no, man, let's totally throw them off guard. The second song, they're gonna expect another rocker song. Like, let's hit them with this ballad that deserves its fair share. And it went over really, really well. So many people commenting about, oh man, I lost, I buried my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, a year ago. And this is just, tears are pouring out of my face as I type this, or I just lost my mom 2 days ago, or, everyone's sharing these very sincere, heartfelt stories of losing a parent, or, anything close to that, and how this song really resonates with everyone. And so I'm really glad that we put a video out for that one and released it second instead of waiting longer. I'm glad that we got that one out and let people kind of, as I've said before, amidst all of the, all of that noise happening, which is great. We love that stuff. But man, this was just like this meaningful song that I think caught a lot of people's attention and uh, shows another dynamic of the record early, that hey, this isn't just like some rock metal record. There's more to it.
And I know, Mike Stone has been on Queensryche Records before,
Yeah,
intermittently,
yeah,
but this was your first record with him, the two of you, yeah? Or does
correct.
or I mean, he does play on the record.
Yeah, he played all these like dual harmony solos. He played on that. He played um rhythms on Eddie's song, so on Realms and Nocturnal Light. And I think that he tracked the guitars on Rebel Yell. Um, but yeah, I mean, he's played on the record. He helped craft, uh, some solos on the record. He was just like, hey, like if you guys need me for anything, let me know. Like I won't be offended if everything's written and I'm not even playing on it. Like he was totally cool with whatever. And we were like, no, man, like you bring a different style and sound and
Yeah,
texture to the other side of the guitar to Michael Wilton.
yeah.
Like we should have that difference. And so he's just the most easygoing, fun-loving, funny guy. And he's very passionate about the music. He's got great ears for things, and he understands what's Queensryche and what isn't. Um, so yeah, this was like a complete full band collaborative thing, and Zeus was there from the very beginning. And I talked to a friend, a very, very well-known person in the industry in Europe, and he said, yeah, I don't have an advanced copy yet, but I heard the full record. Um, and I said, man, like he's just jabbing me, And I said, really, you like it? He goes, it's the best one you've done with the band yet.
Wow.
And I said, do you really think so? And he goes, what, you don't think so? I said, I don't know, because when you're writing songs, like
Of course.
you don't know what people are gonna like or what they're not. Is it better than the verdict? I said, I don't know. I think they're different. Like,
You can't see the forest for the trees when you're in the middle of it too.
right.
It's
He
kind of
but he
get out.
says this is, in his opinion, this is the best one that I've done with the band. And this is the kind of guy that would never say that if he didn't think it. So that's nice, I assume, I know some advanced copies have gone out to some news outlets because I've done a little bit of press, and I did an interview yesterday, and the guy, had an advanced copy, and he really liked it. Of course, I don't think he's going to say he didn't like it,
You're
but
right.
you know, hopefully people like it, and there'll be more.
Yeah,
So that's it.
indeed. Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one last question about Digital Noise Alliance, but
Yep.
it's going to sound like a leading question, like I know something, but I actually don't
Mhm.
exactly know.
Mhm. Mhm.
What's the connection between this album and Hulk Hogan?
Oh, yeah. So a friend of mine, um, her and her husband bought his old mansion that was in Clearwater or Bel Air. And it's the big house. It's like it's 17 or 18,000 square foot house from when he had that reality show.
Hogan knows best. Yeah, I was a viewer.
Okay, okay. So that's the house that they own. They don't live in it. It's just like a weekend whatever house to them. But anyway, so I remember I was over at the house. She was showing me the house for something, and she was like, "Oh, if you and the band ever want to do like a photo shoot here or do anything," and I'm like, well, we do like when we get together for pre-production or some sessions before the recording. I live in a pretty small house, and it's just my wife and I and our dog. So I don't need all this big space, like, so I said, I live I can't accommodate everybody. I said,
Right.
and so getting everybody in and having like nice space, I'm like, would it be possible if we stayed here for a little bit? And she's like, oh yeah, absolutely, no problem. So later down the road, I was like, hey guys, um, instead of like somebody staying here and somebody staying at that guy's house, somebody staying at that guy's house, we can all stay under one roof, a big roof, and it's complimentary. It's a friend of mine owns this house, and she said that we could stay here and work or whatever. So I said, so is it cool if we bring in like some equipment? And she was like, yeah, whatever you want. So we did a bunch of we did some sessions there. And then when it came time to doing the full album, we utilized one of the main rooms. When you walk in the front door, has this amazing ceilings, as Zeus, I'm sure, has shown you
Yeah.
photographs. But it was like, he was like, dude, this would be the perfect drum room. And so I just asked her, would it be possible if we could record either the full record here or just the drums is like the primary kind of thing. And so they were gracious enough to let us come in. Zeus built a studio in what was Hulk Hogan's office. It's this big domed, huge room, and it was like a nice area to set up everything. So Zeus shipped all of his stuff down, and I had a custom gear rack made for here, and so we recorded the drums there. But yeah, it was a great place to hang out. I mean, it's right on the water. It's beautiful at night. It's got the nice waterfall pool. And I mean, it's just such a big house. But, Eddie would cook, and we would all powwow about what we were working on that day or that night. So that's the affiliation with Hulk Hogan. It's not really him, but it's his
Yeah.
old house. But it's the house from the show. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an essence. It's sort of like when we were growing up, if you were in like the Brady Bunch house or something, it's like
Yeah. Right.
those reality TV, it's sort of like those houses become sort of their own iconography. I'll leave you with this. You mentioned opportunities that we've had over the years.
Yeah. I
Oh,
think.
you froze up on me for a quick second.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was just gonna tell you this real quick. Gosh, this was probably 20 years ago. I was working for MTV. I had an opportunity to go spend half a day at Ozzy's house interviewing Ozzy.
Wow.
And we had this great interview, and it's just, me and him and the camera crew. And after the interview's over, my crew is kind of packing up, and I'm, suddenly just sitting there in Ozzy's house with Ozzy. And he says, hey, I just built a studio in the backyard. You want to come see it? Like, yes, Ozzy Osbourne, I would love to come see your home studio in the back. Yeah, I think I can do that. And we go back there, and it was just, I mean, it's goosebumps even 20 years later. We go back in the studio, and he has the engineer just pull up something to show me the speakers.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens what he cues up is After Forever, which is literally my favorite Sabbath song.
Wow.
And so I have this moment where I'm standing shoulder to shoulder with Ozzy in his home studio as After Forever is blasting at us. It's me and him and this engineer. And it was just amazing. And then it was just as quickly as it had happened, it was just over. I could tell he was kind of like done, and then sort of like, thanks so much, see you later. So fast forward, probably 15 years later, 10, 15 years later, I wasn't at MTV anymore, but I got hired by them as a freelancer to interview Christina Aguilera. And it was something to do with The Voice. She had a new single. I kind of don't remember the details, but it was an interview at her house. So got the directions, went to her house, got let in through the gate, and was kind of sitting outside in the patio, waiting to go in and talk to her. And this was more of a press junket kind of situation. So they had the cameras already there. And somebody comes and gets me and says, hey, yeah, you're going to talk to Christina in her home studio. And I start walking up to this room, and I'm like, this whole backyard actually is very familiar. And I go to open the door into her studio, and it's got a cross on the doorknob, and it hits me just as I see that. This is Ozzy's house. This is the she's living at the time, she doesn't live there anymore. She was living in the house that Ozzy used to live in.
Wow.
And she's recording in the studio that Ozzy had made, that he played Me After Forever in.
So did you tell her, like, hey, I've been here?
Yeah. And she had changed all the decor, everything was totally different, except all the door handles throughout the house and in the studio still had this very Ozzy looking crosses on them, and she kept those.
Wow.
And it was I came, first thing I said to her is like, I've been here before, actually.
That's awesome. That's a really great story.
But yeah, and it is one of those things like it's totally random and anecdotal, and it's not actually part of the Queensryche album, but there is still this like weird, like, we're in like Hulk Hogan's old out, like you said, like we're in the studio, Hulk's old office, like.
Yeah, I remember when Zeus was there, he was like, dude, no fucking way. And like I think either I did or maybe he did, we pulled up like one of the episodes from maybe I think it was like Cribs, or I don't know what it was, but it was that house with, and I go, so dude, there's the kitchen. He's like, that's the kitchen that we're standing in right now. And he's like, he thought it was really cool. And yeah, I mean, like where the home gym was, and like his master bedroom, and like, just the whole place, and the pool, the pool was well known in the show. And so at night we would sit, I was trying to find a photograph that I have. It's a really, really nice, it's a beautiful picture of the backyard, like all lit up. Let me see if I can find it really fast. But yeah, it's those moments, like you say, where you kind of pinch yourself and you're like, okay, I wouldn't have never thought that I would be here when I was watching this show way back in the day. I think the photographs, where is it? Should be here anywhere. Hang on.
Yeah, it's just great, those moments. And those are the moments too where you get busy and you get stressed and you travel a lot, or you're exhausted, and then it's important. It's cliche to say stop and smell the roses, but those are the moments where you take a breath and you go like, oh yeah,
I can't find
the life I've carved out for myself.
Yeah, but I mean, the people that you've gotten to meet and interview is pretty amazing, dude. I mean, like, A-lister, super well-known, legendary people. And I think it's awesome. I love hearing your stories. I remember we had a phone call one time for hours, and
4 hours. It may have been the longest conversation I'd ever had.
And
it was pretty amazing.
We just had a great time. I love hearing those stories. They're fun stories. Dude. Yeah, Gus G had some fun stories about when he was playing with Ozzy, and he'd be at the house or in the studio, and like some really memorable experiences where like, wow, dude, like think about that. You're, Ozzy. Yeah, doesn't really get any bigger than that. So.
Okay, I got to tell you this one last one. Then might probably cut this out.
Okay.
Before we wrap, but it reminds me. So I was, before the pandemic, I was doing this monthly Q&A series at the Musicians Institute in Hollywood. And it's basically like inside the actor's studio for bands.
Oh.
A guest, and I interview them for about an hour, and then we take questions from the audience for about 30 minutes. And it's a little like 500 cap theater that they have there. It's really nice. And one of the guests that I had once was Tony Iommi. And obviously, Dark Lord of the Riff, he's a legend. His fingers invented heavy metal. And there's a moment about 5 minutes long before we started the thing where it's just me and him in the little, it's barely a green room, it's like a utility closet practically right off the stage. And it's kind of like, he had a couple of people with him, and there's people from Musicians Institute coming in and out of the room, and then there's like this 5 minutes where it's just me and him. And there's two couches, and we're each on a couch, and we're both on our phones. And then he just says, Ryan, mate, are you familiar with face swap? And I was like, face swap, like the app on an iPhone? And he's like, yeah, are you familiar with it? I was like, yeah, Tony Iommi, I've heard of face swap.
He's like, let's do it.
And even better, because that would have been amazing. But even better, if you can imagine, he comes over to me and he shows me his phone and he goes, yeah, I was, messing around with face swap recently, and check this out. And he's laughing. It's him and Brian May. And he's just showing me
So it's his face with Brian May's hair.
pictures of him and Brian May standing next to each other, and them playing with the face swap app. And yeah, and that's just that again. That's one of those. Yeah, I mean, make a list of 20 moments for it's like birth of my children, and like that's on the list somewhere. And he was so great and such a gentleman and so classy. And
he and I have the same birthday.
Oh no shit, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
he's February somewhere, right?
February 19th.
Brilliant. Yeah, and then he's we did, there was we would always do a little photo shoot with the guests before letting the students in, and it's like, just the guest on the stage or whatever, and then I'd jump in and take a couple pictures, and I'll send you great picture. But I have this great picture where it's me fucking standing with Tony Iommi, just the two of us, and as the guy's taking the pictures, you're nervous, you don't know what to fucking say, and I was like, dude, I kind of feel like I'm the new singer for Black Sabbath right now. And just that like dry, amazing, charming British humor, he just kind of leans over and he goes, you never know, you might be.
That's awesome.
It's like, what do you what more could you want?
Well, that's like when we toured with Priest, and we're walking down the hallway. I hadn't seen Rob yet. We're walking to the stage down the all these hallways, and we turn the corner, and at the doorway there's Rob in a robe, nothing else. He's wearing a robe and slippers, and he has I think a coffee mug in his hand, and he's like, like, gentlemen, or whatever, just totally in his bathrobe. We're like, hey, and there's all these road cases of all these studded and spiked leather, and like their wardrobe cases are ridiculous, by the way. Nobody has the wardrobe like Judas Priest, but not even Kiss, because they wear the same outfits. I mean, Judas Priest there's so much clothing, it's insane. But that was one of those stories, like, what was it like the first time you ever like met Rob Halford? And I'm like, he was in a bathrobe. But such a nice guy. I mean, sweetheart of a guy, and like everybody was cool. But those are those things where you're like, okay, hey, I'm in the club.
You're like, this is worth every bullshit that you've ever had to deal with. It's
totally
to get the cheers from the coffee mug from Alfred in his bathrobe. Like, right, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for taking the disc dive with me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. And it's so insightful and so many cool things to say and explain about each of those great records that you've been part of and will continue to be part of. And Digital Noise Alliance is, of course, the new QUEENSRÿCHE record, and gonna have to have you back when you do the next solo record and the next QUEENSRÿCHE record.
Let's do it. I
to the history.
Thank you very much for having me, and it was a lot of fun. It was great to see you.
Likewise.
And we'll talk soon, my friend.
Killer.